Thank you, Pastor.
You're welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Amen. Good to be here this morning. Pastor, can you go ahead and give me a bottle of water, please? I'm sorry, I should have done that when I was up. Okay, if you have your Bibles, turn with me, please, to Mark, the 8th chapter. Mark, the 8th chapter. So we're in the gospel stage, and we're moving right along. We're right now where Jesus is going from Mount Tabor to Magdala. And so it's been very interesting in that we know right now that he's being persecuted. And we said that when someone is being persecuted, that means that people actually track you down to basically harass you. And so we know that Jesus wasn't doing anything but doing the work that his Father sent him to do. He was fulfilling his purpose. And we say that it's something when you know what your purpose is and you walk in your purpose to fulfill your purpose. He could have been deterred. He could have been distracted from all of those things that were going on around him, but he remained steadfast and true to what he came here to do. And so in Mark the 8th chapter, then, we're going to take a look at, let's start at the 9th verse. Last Sunday, we talked about how when the Pharisees came and how, y'all remember us talking about tradition and how tradition can be a danger and a distraction. Most of the time it's a danger, especially when you're talking about tradition in the church. Because when you're talking about tradition in the church, many times, thank you so much, many times people take that tradition and use it as the gospel. And it doesn't matter what it is. It can be just something simple. And people get all bent out of shape if you don't go with or follow the traditions that they're used to. And that was what the Pharisees did with Jesus and the disciples when they didn't wash their hands. Now, it wasn't washing their hands because it was something that was thank you. And so it was, and they talked about being defiled. And Jesus said, my God, that is not what defiles a man. And so you're focused on the wrong thing. And that's what tradition does, doesn't it? It causes you to focus on the wrong thing, or it causes you to stray away and look at something that totally basically doesn't have anything to do with anything. So in Mark the 8th chapter, the 9th verse, it says, and they that had eaten were about 4,000, and he sent them away. So you remember that he had disciples, those followers who were going after him. Remember, he had already fed 5,000, and now he feeds another 4,000. And straightway he entered into a ship with his disciples and came into the parts of Dalmanutha. And the Pharisees came forth and began to question with him, seeking of him a sign from heaven, tempting him. Now, I don't know what more of a sign that you need if someone has fed 5,000 people, or someone has, then they've gone from that and they fed 4,000 more. What kind of sign is it that you need? And so Jesus and his disciples, as we've just read, they crossed to the western side of the Sea of Galilee, where here they are met with the Pharisees, who now, remember, they're still angry because we talked about their traditions. Let's turn back over to Mark the 7th chapter. They're angry with him because he always shows them up. It's not that he goes out to show them up, but they're so silly in their beliefs, and they're so silly with what they are looking at that invariably Jesus always just puts them to shame. And so now they're still angry at him because of his earlier indictment of their hypocrisy. And let's go back to talking about traditions, because that's what tradition will make you do, Pastor Bland. It will cause you to be hypocritical. So sometimes it will cause you to be hypocritical. Not necessarily all the time, but many times. Okay. And so in chapter 7, when Jesus was talking to the Pharisees, let's just look at verse 6. Mark chapter 7, verse 6. Are you there? He answered and said unto them, well hath Isaiah prophesied of you hypocrites, as it is written, this people honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. And we know that just living from day to day in the world that we live in, even in our own lives, that it's easy to say anything. You can make your mouth say anything. My mama said that all the time when I was growing up, and I've said it since. It's just the truth from here to heaven. You can make your mouth say anything. And so, howbeit in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. For laying aside the commandment of God, ye hold the tradition of men, as the washing of pots and cups, and many other such like things ye do. And he said unto them, full well ye reject the commandment of God, that ye may keep your own tradition. And so then there he kind of puts them to shame in their questioning him about what he was doing. And so let's go back over to Mark the 8th chapter. So they're still smarting from that indictment about their hypocrisy. So you know how it is when somebody gets one up on you, you want to get one up on them. You want to get them back, okay? And so this time they tempted him to prove his divine authority by giving them a sign from heaven. Okay, and so Jesus says over in chapter 8, verse 12, and he sighed deeply in his spirit and said, why does this generation, the Jews that were there, why does this generation seek after a sign? Verily I say unto you, there shall no sign be given unto this generation. So they didn't want an earthly miracle such as what they had been seeing him do, healing the sick. They wanted something spectacular. Can we say that that's what people want today? They want something spectacular. They want something magnanimous, the heavens to open up. They just want something to appear out of nowhere. They just want something to happen that they can say, whoa, And so they wanted like fire from heaven or bread from heaven. And this would prove indeed that he was the Son of God. And so again, here that we just read, his response is one of deep grief and disappointment. Disappointment, first of all, because, his time is winding down as we're going through this. His time is winding down. And here I've been with you all this time. I've walked among you. I've taught among you. I've healed the sick. I've fed those who were hungry. I've done all of this, and this is still what you need in order to believe who I am. And so it was very tragic that the religious leaders, because they were leaders, it was very tragic that the religious leaders of God's chosen people, the Jews, were so hard-hearted and spiritually blind. So their desire for a sign was another evidence of their unbelief. You can just all chalk it up to unbelief. So we know that faith is just taking God at his word. And so faith doesn't ask for a sign. Even though I've done that. Yeah, I've done that. Lord, just give me a sign, Jesus. Have y'all done that ever? I'm just going to tell you the truth about me. Lord, help me. Just show me a sign or something. Just let me know something. And so faith doesn't ask for a sign, but really, faith just takes God at his word. It is something when we can just take God at his word. God, you said it, and I believe it. Robert, right?
Remind me when I was on crack. I would go out and get on one of them benders and come back home and grab the Bible and hold it to my chest and lay down on the couch and ask God for a sign. I promise that happened.
I believe
It
that.
happened over and over and over.
I believe that. I do. I believe that. And so, you know, taking God at His word is just, you know, it's just sometimes it's hard to do. But when you have faith, when you're walking in faith and you're walking in Pastor Bland.
That's funny, but I understand. I understand. And another thing, I think it has to do with your acquaintance with the person that's speaking. It's a lot easier for me to take you at your word when
That's
I
so
when I
true.
know you to be that type of person.
That's so true. And now you can take him at his word more easily if you have history. If you have history, and the history is he's brought me through every time. Every time he's brought me through. And so why wouldn't I take him at his word?
Like I said, I always use my mom. If I was stranded on the side of the road, or even you know, when I had that wreck, one of the wrecks, coming from Little Rock, what, 2 o'clock in the morning, it's raining, it's cold, and I was a long way. I came through that the other day. I was a long way from Helena. I hadn't made the low note, and I called you, but I knew you were coming, you know, and so not only the history, but how you believe that person, the person who's speaking, how you believe that they feel towards you. You know, some people you would call you like, I hope they come. You know, and others they were like, well, they come. If they don't come, it's something that happened. And one thing you know about God, can't nothing happen.
Thank you, Pastor Bland. And so now he goes from Magdala to Bethsaida. In Mark, the 8th chapter, we're moving right along to the 22nd verse where he heals a man with fuzzy eyesight. And I just, you know, point out some of the, you can't not mention everything that he does. It would just be too much, and it would just take too much time. And even everything that he did is not even listed here because the Bible says that, you know, everything that he did is not here. And so in verse 22, it says, and he cometh to Bethsaida, and they bring a blind man unto him, and besought him to touch him. And he took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the town. And so led him out of the town, and when he had spit on his eyes and put his hands upon him, he asked him if he saw aught. And he looked up and said, I see men as trees walking. After that, he put his hands again upon his eyes and made him look up, and he was restored and saw every man clearly. And so Jesus sent him home to spread the good news and to share with others the demonstration of his power. He said, neither go into the town nor tell it to any man in the town. He sent him to his house, saying, don't go into town, just and not anybody in town. So when he heals the man, he heals him. His sight is restored gradually. Let's go over to John. Let's go over to John, the 7th chapter. John 7. And let's start at the second of, let's see, I'm in Luke. Give me just a second to get there. I'm in the wrong book. sorry. John 7, and let's start at verse 2. Thank you, Pastor Bland. Now the Jews' Feast of Tabernacles was at hand. You remember the Feast of the Tabernacles, correct? Feast of the Tabernacles, where Israel looked back at their journey through the wilderness, where they dwelled in booths. You remember that? Okay, so a temporary journey. Booths were temporary, but letting them know that their situation, they might have been in the wilderness at that time, but they were going to a place where God was going to plant them. So they honored this time and honored God's deliverance of them in their journey with the Feast of the Tabernacle, and so Feast of the Tabernacles. And so it looked back to Israel's journey through the wilderness, but it also looked forward to the promised kingdom of the Messiah. And so this was a very festive time for the people, much like y'all do when the blues festival comes to town. You got people everywhere, and you got vendors all downtown, and everybody's happy and celebrating. And so that's much like what this time was. And so his brethren, I'm in chapter 7, verse 3, his brethren therefore said, now when I'm talking about his brethren here, I'm talking about his real brethren or his half brothers. Okay, because it would not have been his whole brothers. Why?
Because God was his father.
Okay, because God was his father. So his brethren therefore said unto him, depart hence and go into Judea, that thy disciples also may see the works that thou doest. And so this time here this particular period in time was a difficult one for Jesus, because it marked the beginning of open and militant opposition to him and his ministry. It is something else when people do things behind the scene, but then when they are openly assault you, it's harder. They openly assault you and they openly attack you and become more militant in that, trying to get rid of you, trying to stop your voice from being heard, trying to stop you from moving forward in what God had purposed you to do. And so that's what was happening now with his ministry. And so his brothers were preparing to attend the feast. And so they rebuked Jesus here by suggesting that he's avoiding publicity because of his insincerity. But Jesus, it's you have to be methodical, you have to be strategic, and you have to move in God's timing. And so here he attempts to penetrate their dull thinking with the fact that when his hour of Calvary comes, there would be plenty of publicity. But right now is not the time. And so in verse 4, for there is no man that doeth anything in secret, and he himself seeketh to be known openly. If thou do these things, show thyself to the world. This is his brothers talking. Show thyself to the world. For neither did his brothers, come on now, look at this, neither did his brethren believe in him. Neither did his brethren believe in him. So no wonder they're thinking it's dull. They didn't believe in him to begin with. And so this is not somebody that's outside of the house. This is somebody that's in the house, that don't understand what you're all about, that don't understand what your purpose is. And so how would you, and I'm talking about us now, how would you expect somebody else to get on board? And so he says to them, my time is not yet come, but your time is always ready. So the world cannot hate you, but it hateth because I testify of it, that the works thereof are evil. Go ye up unto this feast. I go not up yet unto this feast, for my time is not yet full come. So Jesus was exercising caution because he knew that the Jewish leaders wanted to kill him. He did not tempt the Father by rushing to the feast, nor did he lag behind when the proper time had come for him to attend the feast. So right here is a good time for us to do Let's Talk About It, okay? So let's talk about it. And the statement simply says, it requires spiritual discernment to know God's timing. So what say you? What do you say? Can you add anything to that? And what do you think about knowing God's timing? It requires spiritual discernment to know God's timing.
I guess I would have to first know what spiritual discernment is.
Being able to see more deeply, if you will. And I'm saying some more deeply, not to take things at face value, because some things go deeper than taking them at face value. So it requires that to be able to move through that, to know God's timing. What do you say? Jacqueline, did you have something? Okay, Pastor Blunt, I think she does. Her mask is off. So, oh, you're breathing. Okay, I thought you were getting ready to speak. Okay, all right. So have you experienced that? Let's look at it a different way. Have you experienced anything where you know that you were in God's timing or not in God's timing? And what reaction did it cause?
I guess the best way I can answer that is with Scripture.
Okay.
1 Corinthians 2 and, I guess I'll start with 8. 1 Corinthians 2 and 8. And it says, which none of the princes of this world knew, for had they known it, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. But as it is written, I have not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him. So then for them to know, then God would have to let them know. Mm-hmm. Because so I think it just speaks directly to what you're saying, because it says, but God hath revealed unto us by his Spirit. Mm-hmm. For the Spirit searcheth all things, yea, the deep things of God. For what man knoweth the things of a man, say the spirit of man which is in him. Even so, the things of God knoweth no man, but the Spirit of God. Now, we have received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit which is of God, that we might know the things that are freely given to us of God. Which things also we speak, not in the words which man's wisdom teach, but which the Holy Ghost teacheth, comparing spiritual things with spiritual. And this last verse is what made me read this. But the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. Mm-hmm. So then, in order for me to know what God is doing, it's just like 90% of the church still thinks that we are in some way obligated to the old covenant that Israel had. They're not spiritually discerned, and therefore they can't rightly divide the word of truth. And because of traditions, as you started off the lesson, you're not going to let it go. You know, traditionally, I came from a church where part of our liturgy was repeating the Decalogue. We call it the Decalogue, which was 10 Commandments. And I don't see it so much now, but I used to see the little cardboard things of the Ten Commandments out in front of churches. So the only way that you're going to know, even though the Bible clearly says, Lady Deborah, in Romans 6:14, sin shall not have dominion over you because you're not under the law, you're under grace. It says that clearly because of what you started off with, the traditions. We don't see that, and it's not spiritually discerned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
One last thing,
Okay.
and that is, it's just like being married. Y'all can't really have a marriage if we can't have a marriage if you're listening to your girlfriends. We can't have a marriage if I'm listening to Robert telling me what I need to do in my house and whatever. That's what you see. And so I can't really have a relationship with God if I'm listening to somebody beside God.
Okay, great point. Jackie, did you want to comment? I thought I heard your hand while he was talking. Okay, all right. So now, but let me follow up on that and ask. So walking, okay, so he can't know them unless they're spiritually discerned. So would you agree that walking outside of God's timing fosters regret?
If you got any sense, I mean, well, in order to have regret, you have to have some amount of humility.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm in pride, no matter how wrong I am, I'm right. I'm right. I can justify, rationalize whatever I did in the past. I've got to have a certain amount of humility. In order for me to see where you were right, I've got to have a certain amount of humility, because for you to be right means I'm wrong. And pride won't let me do that.
Wow.
If you're walking outside of God, you're walking on hard coals anyway.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank y'all. Okay. So now he waits until the right time. In John the 7th chapter, and I'm at the 11th verse. Well, let me just start at the 9th verse. Are you there? John 7:9. When he had said these words to his brothers, that his time is not yet full come, when he had said these words unto them, he abode still in Galilee. But when his brethren were gone up, then went he also up unto the feast, not openly, but as it were in secret. Why was it in secret? It was in secret because of the open attack. That was now, it just wasn't, they weren't trying to hide it. They were openly attacking him. Then the Jews sought him at the feast and said, "Where is he?" And there was much murmuring among the people concerning him, for some said, so he's attending the feast, and now here we see that he's the object of much speculation. It says here that he is a good man. Others said, "Nay, but he deceived the people. Howbeit no man spake openly of him for fear of the Jews." Now, about the midst of the feast, Jesus went up into the temple and taught, and stopped there. Okay, so some thought that he was a good man. It's like it very much so today. You have varying and different opinions about who he is. And that's why you have to know in your heart who he is to you. And so they thought he was a good man. Some said he was a deceiver. Some recognized him as a master teacher. Some looked at him as a Sabbath breaker. We know that, the Pharisees. And then some viewed him as a prophet, and some accepted him. Some accepted him as their Messiah. And so now he goes up into the temple and he begins to teach openly. And so now the debate changes from his character and his person to his doctrine. Let's look at John, the 7th chapter, and let's go over. Well, let me just stop right here. Jesus answered them and said, in verse 16, "My doctrine is not mine, but his that sent me. If any man will do his will, he shall know of the doctrine, whether it be of God or whether I speak of myself. He that speaketh of himself seeketh what? His own glory. But he that seeketh his glory he that seeketh his glory that sent him, the same is true, and no unrighteousness is in him. Did not Moses give you the law, and yet none of you keep the law? Why go ye about to kill me?" Okay? So the debate shifts to his doctrine, and let's look at Nicodemus over here in verse 50, who tries to defend him. And then he himself becomes ridiculed or is ridiculed by the Pharisees. Nicodemus saith unto them in chapter 7, verse 50, he that came to Jesus by night, this same Nicodemus, being one of them, "Doth our law judge any man before it hear him and know what he does?" Now, what do y'all call that? That due process, and you also call it contempt prior to contempt prior to investigation. And that's all Nicodemus is saying. You have contempt prior to investigation. You are assaulting him, and you haven't even given him due process. And so he says, "Doth our law judge any man before it hear him and know what he does?" They answered and said unto him, "Art thou also a Galilee? Search and look, for out of Galilee arises no prophet." And every man went unto his own house. You see how contemptible they were in their belief in who he was.
And like Deborah, I believe, now I'm not sure that that's some more tradition, because I mean, it's a lot in the Bible I don't know, but I've never read where God said that no prophet will come out of Galilee. And so I would think that was some more their tradition.
Okay. Thank you, Pastor Bland. Okay, so we're moving on. We're going to stay right here in John, and we're going to go to John 8, and we'll start at the first verse where he forgives an adulterous woman. So John 8 and verse 1 says, "Jesus went unto the Mount of Olives, and early in the morning he came again into the temple, and all the people came unto him, and he sat down and taught them. And the scribes and Pharisees brought unto him a woman taken in adultery. And when they had set her in the midst," and I don't know, in my mind, I don't imagine this being anything gentle that they did. I just imagine it being something that was very harsh and very cruel that they did. They brought her to him, and then they set her in the midst. They say unto him, "Master, this woman was taken in adultery, in the very act." Now, Moses in the law commanded us, so do we see again, this is a setup. It's a setup. And so it's used by the Pharisees, it's a theological attempt to pit Jesus against Moses and then try to trap him. This is open assault. This is an open assault. And so, however, he turns the table on them, and they should have enough of this already. They should have enough of this already. How can you trap him? Now, Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned. But what sayest thou? This, they said, tempting him, that they might have to accuse him. But Jesus stooped down and with his finger wrote on the ground as though he heard them not. And that reminds me of what you said a lot of times, Pastor Bland, when Jesus specializes, it look like he's not coming. And sometimes it seems like he specializes in making you think that he doesn't hear you. But this is more of the timing, his timing, okay? And so when they continued asking him, he lifted up himself and said unto them, he that is, how profound is that? He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. And so now they as the accusers, what are they left with? They're left with a bit of truth, aren't they? Left with a bit of truth. And the truth is, you're like the pot called Nickel Black. You have nothing you can say against this woman. If you do, speak now. So what do? And they which heard it, being convicted by not hers, but by their own conscience, went out one by one, beginning at the eldest, even unto the last. And Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. So they shuffle away, because they shame now. And she's left there, and Jesus had lifted up himself and saw none but the woman. And he said unto her, Woman, where are those thine accusers? Have no man condemned thee? She said, No man, Lord. And Jesus said unto her, Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. So they walk away embarrassed, and she walks away forgiven.
Like that makes me think about when I get indignant. I feel like somebody has done me wrong, and I just get how could they? And I think my mind is full of their actions and what they did and how wrong they were and how they have offended and done me wrong. And I get a lot of energy from that. But I don't get any better until I see my part in it. When I can see, and I don't care invariably, no matter what happens, I was on stage and I had some lines, whether they were spoken or unspoken. And so I'm thinking about these people, they came looking for one thing. And they were in their self-righteousness. Look at this woman. Look what she's done. But they left really with some help, because you don't get no help till you see yourself. I don't get no help as long as I'm looking at you.
That's a great point. Great point. Great point.
We all have a selfish nature.
Yes, we do.
So we are.
Yeah, absolutely we do. And sometimes it takes something like that for us to see ourselves.
And what I'm beginning to learn, Deacon, is, hold on, Jackie speaking. Mm-hmm. What I'm beginning to learn is like, it's going to be like that till I die. See, what I was taught at first in church is like some kind of transformation was going to take place, and I'm going to be somebody different if I could go to Sunday school enough. Yeah.
Speaking on what the pastor said, that's a lot of what I've been going through lately. Is I've been in my feelings about a lot of things, and especially after the death of George. And when it comes to my family, and I don't mean my siblings, I'm talking about my family that's here. And we are not like distant relatives. I talk to Mother Singh a lot about my feelings, and she trying to help me be saved or stay saved, and she need help right along.
She can't help you, baby.
But but my thing is, I feel that family is very important. And we should be supportive of each other. And it's not like I'm a person that is a beggar, or if I come to you, I always want something, because I'd rather just go without than to have to ask somebody for anything. But my family has not been supportive. They don't come around, they don't call. But then when they need something or they need someone, I'm the first one that they call. And I've been real bitter. I'm praying to ask the Lord to help me be better. But right now I'm bitter, and I'm just having a hard time trying to get rid of that bitterness, you know.
Yeah, I get that. So I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this to you, and I'm gonna say this to all of us when it comes to something like that, because we all have family. But at the root of all of that is the expectation that you have of them. And it's an expectation many times where what the expectation you have of them is not reciprocated. Well, they cannot always meet up to your expectation. And so if you never have that expectation, you wouldn't be as bitter as you are. Now, I'm speaking from experience. I'm speaking from experience and some things that I'm going through myself right now with my family. So we have to rid ourselves of the expectation, not saying that that's wrong, but we have to rid ourselves of that expectation, because that's what disappoints us.
Go ahead.
I think what Mr. Bland is saying, our expectation works on our emotion,
It does.
and it works
It
on
does.
our
It does.
what was I said a minute ago? Huh? Yeah. Yeah. It works on our selfishness. Really works on our selfishness. Because
Yeah.
we're selfish in our way. We look for something and we expect something, but then when we don't get it, then our selfishness takes over.
And absolutely, an expectation that we shouldn't have is that we expect for people to treat us the way we treat them. That is just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And when we can work on that, it really helps us with our peace. It really, truly does, because I'll never forget, Sister Carolyn Bennett told me when I was working myself in the children's church, and I was just so excited and passionate about it, and, doing this and doing that, and looked like the people that were working down there just couldn't get with it or help me or whatever, and it just wasn't what I thought. And she said, well, Sister Bland, she said, they're not going to feel about it the way you feel about it. And when she told me that, it freed me. It absolutely freed me. I said, well, you know what? You telling the truth. They just not going to feel about it the way you feel about it. And so we shouldn't expect them to. And so when after that, I still have some expectations of some people, but then I'm trying to work on that, Jackie, not to have those expectations, because really, if you think about it, a lot of them are unrealistic, even though they're your family, even though they're distant, and the thing that I'm working through right now is your family. But many times, that's not your tribe. And so you have to find your tribe, and you have to celebrate your tribe instead of looking for someone outside to help to validate you, to do whatever it is. Sometimes you're just not going to find that. Sometimes it's the people outside that become your tribe, and then it's like that. Mm-hmm. And there you go. And you just have to be all right with that. You have to be all right with that.
Let's stop and think that our families are dealing with the same issues that we are. And remember, they're dealing with the same issues. They have problems that something out of them that they can't do or won't do.
You know what? There you go. And I'm going to say this, and we're going to end right here. And I appreciate y'all for helping me to teach this. I didn't even know how this was going to go, but you know, a lot of times we expect things that they're not able to give us back, and it has absolutely helped me to be able to say, you know what? They're not capable of that. And my husband helps me with that a lot of times. It's like, you know, I'm walking through the house, I'm huffing and puffing, I'm fussing about this one and that one. So, well, what? You want something that they can't give you. And so you're not doing anything but frustrating yourself. You're frustrating yourself. Do I see your hand, Mother Bland?
And anybody can tell you I'm as happy as a flea lock. Whether you come or go, I'm happy. Oh,
Yeah, because the truth of the matter is, and it sounds really simple, but people are doing what they want to do. People are doing what they want, and when it's all said and done, and when you leave here and gone on, they're gonna still be doing what they want to do.
And the thing about it is that you really have to put your trust in God. People will let you down. If you want to just get on that level and go there, cut it off.